Welcome to a Wednesday with Clear Mountain. Today we're joined by Ayya Sobhana from the East Coast. Ayya, it's so good to have you with us.
Yes, my pleasure.
So a brief introduction. Ayya Sobhana is a Harvard graduate and trained with Master Dhamma and meditation teacher Bhante Henepola Gunaratana, or Bhante G, for 25 years. She went forth into monastic life as a Sāmanerī in 2003 and obtained full bhikkhuni ordination at Dambulla, Sri Lanka in 2006. In 2010, Ayya Sobhana moved from the Bhavana Society of West Virginia to Aranya Bodhi Awakening Forest Hermitage. In 2016, she was appointed vice-abbot of Dhammadharini Monastery, the Bhikkhunis community new training monastery in California. In 2025, this year, or last year rather, she moved to Empty Cloud Monastery in Newark, New Jersey to lead the community there. Her primary practice is the Eightfold Noble Path, integration of meditation with ethical living, and compassionate relationships for the sake of liberation. And just to add my own kind of bit of praise here, Ayya Sobhana is one of the monastics. I watch most of her Dhamma talks and Q&As. Every Friday she does a monk chat as well on Empty Cloud's YouTube channel, and so value her Dhamma, her wisdom, and we're just delighted that we finally got her to join our kind of for an interview. So thank you so much, Ayya.
Yes.
Ayya, maybe to begin with, just I'm wondering if you could tell us about the moments of faith that led to you ordaining within your life. What kind of moments of faith stand out as key in terms of you coming to robes?
Okay. I would say that, first of all, my family background was religious. Our family was Catholic, and I had a very inspiring connection with some of the Catholic nuns as a young girl and teenager. It was such an inspiration to me to meet these peaceful but powerful, highly intelligent, well-educated, meditative practitioners at that young age. And that Catholicism was not the path for me, but because of that background and that connection, the monastic form seemed like the most logical thing. And now, when I first encountered the Dhamma, I was in a situation that was like a lot of people in the world, with a lot of ups and downs and this and that and emotions and so forth. I was in recovery. That's part of my story. And it came to that part of the 12-step program where you're supposed to take up prayer and meditation. So I was shopping around for some community for that purpose. And a friend gave me a tip that there was a certain practice called vipassana that had no mumbo jumbo, no hocus pocus. You know what hocus pocus means? Okay, so
it's a bit like, yeah,
hocus pocus is a very mean, satirical reference to the Holy Communion of the Catholic faith, where they lift up the bread and they say, hoc est corpus, this is the body. And that becomes hocus pocus. But I was finding with different spiritual groups that I attended, there was some kind of a neediness that I was getting from these other groups, and I wanting money. Some just instabilities. I was quite cynical at that time until I got in this course taught by a bhikkhu whose name I have forgotten, an American a bhikkhu who gave a class on the Eightfold Noble Path. And he was such an embodiment of gentleness and generosity. I would go there once a week to a very warm, dimly lit room in a church, and he would give this lecture in this very soft voice, and I would fall asleep. But when I apologized for that, there was like not the least scintilla of resentment or judgment about that. And the monk said, well, something in your life is really tiresome right now. You see, so it was those kind of demonstrations of a happiness that could not be disturbed. That was my first inspiration. Now that monk introduced the class to Bhante Gunaratana, and in meeting Bhante Gunaratana, I had very much a similar experience without fully or even beginning to understand the significance of the Dhamma. I was only inspired by the personality and character of that bhikkhu. And I made a personal vow at that time to make an effort for the period of 1 year to do. So I had enough faith to be willing to go that far. And then I would find out and see if it worked. The 1 year became 2 years. And I almost immediately began to experience a really profound transformation and change to some of the issues that I had at that time. And so then, even still not really understanding the Eightfold Path, it was because of the transformative power of the mindfulness practice that I was learning, and also the metta practice that I was learning, that convinced me that there was something there. So I just kept practicing, and it kept working, and slowly, the actual some kind of intellectual understanding of why this program is so effective caught up to what I was experiencing by simply following the directions.
Ayya, how does this introduction and interest in meditation chronologically fit in with your Harvard education? Were you learning about meditation while you were at Harvard, or is this before or after?
No, it was much later.
Much later?
Yeah, I was already 35 years old or so when I started seriously picking up the Dhamma. I did, I met Ramdas at Harvard, but it didn't take.
And do you see any other through lines with the intellectual skills that you were gaining at Harvard that you kind of just either intentionally or just because of that training took into your monastic life? Were you interested in the scholastic side of Buddhism from the beginning, or did that come later?
As a young person, I would say that my real religion was not Catholicism. My real religion was science. I had a great love for scientific factoids, little snippets. And if something appeared to me to be scientifically true, then it seemed to be real. So when I came to the Buddhism, one of the qualities of Bhante Gunaratana is, he's quite interested in spreading the Dhamma to the Western world. Even as a child, he wanted to teach foreigners about the Dhamma. And so he takes a lot of care to make the practice accessible by not being so much front and center with the ceremonial aspects or the aspects that would challenge the sensibilities of Westerners. So I got this extreme sort of like a rational rendition, like narrative. Back in the 50s, Buddhism was being presented to the Western world as being a scientific faith, and that was kind of the version that I got at the beginning, and so that helped me. The other part that I think saved my life, not at the very beginning, but later on, is that I always had the confidence to find my own way, to cut my own path, to do my own investigations, to discover that which I could realize within myself. During the early years, especially when I was in the monastic form, I was jumping ahead another 10 years. So it was 10 years from when I met Bhante G to entering monastic training. Undertaking the formalities of monastic etiquette and so forth was challenging. And there was a point at which I realized that I had to be authentic, even if it meant that I might seem to be less skillful, that I could only present what I actually had and what I actually had realized. And so I believe that the confidence to go forward in that way could have been because of my education.
I want to. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say more?
Okay, go ahead.
I remember I was listening to your biography, and this moment came up, and it felt very meaningful. Where you say, you'd gone to Bhavana society and realized that you were trying to live up to these teachings in a way that was inauthentic and making you, I think you said, like a wooden doll. And you actually made a vow to be as authentic as you could, even if it meant it didn't come across as beautifully as, the wooden doll might have. Can you speak about that vow and that struggle for authenticity and, how you've navigated that for our listeners who similarly find themselves, caught between wanting to be quote unquote good Buddhists and also wanting to be authentic on this path? What thoughts would you have for them?
Well, my approach has actually changed since that time. A few years ago, the community at the Dhammadharini was so kind and generous. They gave me a 4-month retreat. So they supported me for 4 months. And during that time, 3 of those months I was sitting in a cabin out at the Aranya Bodhi Hermitage in the forest with no responsibilities except to receive a meal once a day. I began to wonder whether a person can help another person. And I started studying that in the suttas. And I noticed that the chief way in which a person helps another was the way the Buddha helped humans and gods by promulgating, explaining, and pointing out the Dhamma. And the chief way in which she advised the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to help was to accurately represent the Dhamma that the Buddha was giving. And he said that the chief harm that we could do would be to misrepresent the teachings of the Buddha. And that doing such a harmful thing as misrepresenting the Buddha would cause tremendous harm to ourselves and to others, and could lead to eons in a woeful state. So I then am actually more conservative now and less interested in that creative, authentic side. It was like when I was younger, I wanted to discover a new Dhamma that had never been known by anybody else before. that was just my personal a discovery of something that nobody else knew about until I came along. and now I still believe strongly that humans are bound by the culture that we live in. And so there's, physical, biological evolution, and there's also cultural evolution. So what we are capable of realizing or capable of understanding, or even capable of perceiving, is very much limited and bound by the culture in which we exist. So then to find a link or a matchup between what I'm able to see in the here and now and what has been handed down from what the Buddha was able to know and see, and what the early disciples were able to know and see. That's kind of a miracle, and it's also something, it's both fantastic and something that should be approached with some humility. But nevertheless, when I was younger, I spent a long time working with the 5 aggregates, doing my own system, correlating the 5 aggregates with the way that a scientist called, or a science writer called Antonio Damasio explains about emotions and cognitive science, and several other writers and philosophers of mind. So I meshed those things up, and I applied that teaching to a way of what I call working with emotions the Buddha's way. That it's like a juggernaut. All those factors are working together in a way that's just powerful and irresistible. But if you can divide them up, you can divide and conquer. And then if you can change or shift one of the elements, then the whole machinery then starts to slow down until it finally you're able to regain control of it. Regarding the body, I wanted to know the mind-body are connected. So if the mind is uptight and the body is tense, those two things are supporting each other. If I can learn how to relax the body, calm the body, that helps me to unlock whatever rigidity is happening in the mind. Feelings are like the gasoline. So in Damasio, the feelings are how all of our faculties become activated in a very useful and wholesome way. We become physically, mentally, psychologically, very fast, very intuitively able to do what we need to do to extend our life and to protect our life. And for Damasio, this was the most wonderful thing. One of his books is called Self Comes to Mind, and he thought it was really fantastic how a person, no matter what happens to them, they can always create a self. So that just recognizing the purpose of Vedana and having like a forgiving attitude. It's like when feeling comes up, it's like I know you mean well, although you're not wise, but you mean well. The feelings will come up because the feelings are trying to help me. And so with that forgiveness, and then likewise from the volition perceptions, my mantra was, is that really true? Or volitions, my technique was to personify the intention, and I would speak to the emotion and say, okay, Mrs. Anger, if you were in charge, what do you really want to do right now? And often the result was so shocking that I don't want to do that. And then the consciousness is actually the not only grasping the other things, but it's like the sine qua non of suffering, because it's the consciousness that then wants to rush ahead to the next birth. So that those tricks that were so helpful to me 15 or 20 years ago actually are quite, I don't need them so much anymore, but they're quite good for teaching, because I find a lot of people find those tips useful. I'm going to tell you one other tip that I discovered just when I was just getting started. It was like I took a long retreat at IMS just before ordaining. And the slogan is a pony of love for every girl.
Say that again.
A pony of love for every girl. At that time, I was in grief because of the loss of a dear one who had passed away. And it was a bit of a roller coaster during that retreat. But eventually, I had a dream. Sears, Roebuck, and some satellite communication company had a merger. And their slogan of the new company was a pony of love for every girl. So the satellite company, the telecommunication company, represents Nama because it's mental. And Sears Roebuck represents Rupa because it's stuff. And both of those companies were going bankrupt at the time. So the Nama Rupa is bankrupt. The pony of love is like those little toys that girls have. You know, like the purple ponies with the big tail and the big mane and so forth.
My Little Pony. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
So after that, sometime on the retreat, I had my trick was whenever I was distracted from the meditation by some thought or feeling, I would have a budget. I would give it one note, no more than one note of what was going on. And then I would give a pony of love to that problem, and then return to the meditation. And so this is what I'm saying is that I feel like because I went to Harvard, I have the right to use my own imagination to find my own solutions. And I believe that, all the books in the library are not worth as much as a solution that somebody finds that's meaningful and appropriate for them just at that moment. That's the trick that helps them to make progress.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Those are very unique, very creative ways of, in my mind, just maturing that self-sense of authenticity. And yeah, using those reframing Damasios and your own reframing of the 5 aggregates is helpful. And the pony of love for every girl.
Power Rangers of Patience.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Do those too. All right. For every boy.
Yeah, and girls who like it.
And girls, yeah. Anybody can get a Power Ranger or a pony. But I actually am curious to go back to something that you pointed to, is just working in those 12-step groups. I know a number of monastics and certainly lots of practitioners who have gone one way or the other, had Dhamma be their door to the 12-step groups, like enter in and think they're going to do a lot of meditation and realize that they've got a lot of house cleaning to do with the rest of their lives. And so they join a 12-step group. And then, as you were describing, joining a 12-step group and taking that, I believe it's the 11th or 12th step, and taking in practicing meditation. Could you say more about that? Maybe in your own case, how that relationship matured, and would you recommend, is a Buddhist monastery a replacement for a 12-step group, or do they serve totally different purposes?
Well, 12-step groups have their own role, especially providing fellowship and a really, really wonderful practical support for getting sober and staying sober. I did have one experience, actually. I was a monastic, and I already at that point, by the way, this year I shall have 40 years of sobriety.
Sadhu, sadhu.
At that point, I had about approximately 20 years of sobriety, and I was in a somewhat, in some ways, the time that I spent in Sri Lanka was alienating because of language and cultural differences. And I had an experience where I found that I was able to check out and escape from that unpleasant reality, that the addictive mind that was so used to escaping by means of substances actually was still completely there and completely knew how to escape from reality without doing anything or taking anything. I was able to escape, and I was able to experience all of the ensuing arising of mental illness and anxiety that were the side effects of the addictive pattern. So I believe that in the Dhamma, the teaching of the Four Noble Truths is that exactly that craving, which is the cause of all suffering, the craving for pleasure, is an expression of how life itself is the opportunity for addictive consumption for the hedonic treadmill. But the solution in the Dhamma is not the same solution as in the 12-step programs. So the 8-step program goes further than the 12-step program. However, I got another slogan out of my bad experience of temporarily escaping mentally, and my slogan is you must be present to win. So that I can't afford to escape from reality. That's a danger. I have to be vigilant and mindful at all times to not allow myself to escape from reality. Yeah.
I love that the 8-step program goes farther than the 12-step, and just some of the other things you pointed out, that skillful means of seeing what your intention wants to do. And then I just know so many of mine, I really would cringe and not want to follow that if I really asked that question. And I appreciate your maturing of perspective that you spoke about, where you actually began to realize that these moments of inventing kind of a novel way of approaching the Dharma or evaluating its truth by where you really resonated with your own cultural conditioning wasn't the be-all end-all, and really becoming more and more careful about representing the Dhamma faithfully. And I know that's something we also work with quite a lot. And it's something I've seen in your teachings is you reference the Buddha's words constantly and know them deeply. And we love this. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite sutta? And I know part of the answer, or at least one you've brought up, is the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta, which is not a very well-known sutta, but is really loved by those who do touch it. And so, if that is indeed the answer, then if you could explain why, or if there's another sutta that really comes to mind, please talk about that instead. That was a very leading question.
The Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta is been a touchstone of my life. The poignancy of the framing story obviously is a big appeal. the introduction, the first part of the sutta that when I'm speaking about protecting truth in terms of the review of the 6 sense bases, was something that taught me how to approach suttas. The sequence in that sutta is reviewing the 6 senses, then looking at the 4 elements, then going to the consciousness element. And what I believe is that presentations that may seem to be discursive or sort of a rational discursive laying out of doctrine, that actually what's being offered is a guided meditation. So that preliminary to practicing the elements meditation, to practice the contemplation of the 6 senses and to awaken and become alive, and to develop the lively perception of what's happening through the senses, then turning to the elements, and having those practices lead to the deeper samadhi and to the chance to realize that choice point that one can either stay in a formless realm for a long time, many eons, or else one can realize just at that point that the state of meditation itself is conditioned, impermanent, therefore suffering, therefore not the refuge, and then turn toward nirvana. The descriptions of the characteristics of what it's like to be enlightened had been a point of curiosity for me for a long time, and that was the first description of the meaning of enlightenment that really came home to me and became a centering factor for me. Without making any claims upon myself, it's simply so useful to have something like a North Star where you have a strong image of what it is we're trying to aim for, what it will be like when we get home to what we're aiming for. And then with those, even though if it's only a story at the level of understanding that we have, having that kind of clarity can help to guide us, because we know whether we're going towards or away from those states. Since that time, I think I've noticed more suttas and more in the teachings about how wisdom arises about how the whole path fits together, and many more. Well, actually, almost every sutta you have, or many suttas that conclude with enlightenment, right? But when we're young in the practice, and when we don't get it, then we just kind of skip that part, and we study the problem statement at the beginning that says how we suffer, and we just skim over the part at the end, which is about how we awaken.
So, Ayya, you're speaking here about Majjhima Nikaya 140, for those who don't know, and it's beautifully framed by a wanderer goes to rest in a cowshed and sees another monastic there, and they start talking, and only later does that wanderer realize that it's the Buddha he's talking to at the end of the night when they reveal his identity. And I'm curious, Ayya, you spoke about this North Star of this vision of enlightenment that really resonated with you. What is that North Star? What resonates or has stuck with you from that sutta?
The thought that, practicing for peace that at the last moment, at the last breath, that there's no preference for either becoming or not becoming. And that then because there's no preference, there's no disturbance. Because there's no disturbance, then one becomes a sage at peace.
I have one close sutta to that, Majjhima 137, the Salayatana Vibhanga, the exposition on the 6 sense bases you've also spoken about just a month ago, and I was refalling into it, refalling in love with that sutta at the exact same time that you were going over that. And that sutta speaks about renunciant and domestic happiness, unhappiness, or happiness, sadness, and equanimity. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that in the case of yourself, when you move from being a layperson to living with Bhante G. What is domestic sadness, happiness, and how does that differ from renunciant sadness and happiness in your own case?
I have to say that I have a disability about the 6 senses. This is like a personality type. So as an INTP personality, the intuitive, perceptive kind of personality, what's coming into the senses is much less real to me than the internal states.
You're not an F. You're not a feeler. Okay.
I'm not a feeling person.
I'm a T. I'm a T too. All right. Yeah. High five. Oh, no. Okay.
Okay.
And so it's been actually a longer trail for me to get to the point of understanding why to be concerned about the 6 senses. So I have a concept about that, but nevertheless, feeling. I'm really clear about feeling. I'm good on feeling. I know what I can recognize feelings very quickly, and I have a lot of freedom towards feeling when I experience it. But like how the feeling comes to be because of contact is still something that I need to take a special effort to be able to catch hold of that. My idea about the householder feelings is not quite in the format of this Salayatana Sutta. My idea is that we live in the Kama Loka, which is the world which is governed by sensual desire. And I believe that the sensual desire that we're subjected to is not only about pleasures like, have fun, see something beautiful, Salayatana Sutta. My idea is that we live in the Kama Loka, which is the world which is governed by sensual desire. And I believe that the sensual desire that we're subjected to is not only about pleasures like, have fun, see something beautiful, fall in love, all those kinds of common ideas about sensual pleasure. But that also a lot of the creatures of the rat race are part of the Kama Loka. So part of worldly happiness is to have a comfortable status in the world, to have a good house with a good roof, to have a good barn filled with grain, or a good bank account filled with money, to have a lot of relatives, to be loved and respected by all of the relatives, to have employees and to be respected and obeyed by all the employees, and having that whole carcass of extra accoutrements is protecting the possibility to live in comfort and not to have the danger that the pleasant feelings that we experience today are not going to disappear tomorrow. So all of those things are part of worldly pleasure. And I think you get that in the teaching about the householder's pleasure, like the householder's sadness to say, oh, I had something before, now I've lost it, woe was me. So that's really fitting into that idea. Then the renunciate pleasure then does at the intermediate level, like the trainee level, come to being equanimous, patient, to be able to patiently bear with all of the ups and downs and inconveniences and things that may happen in life, not to be stressed by any type of minor disappointment, and not to be excited by superficial gains. So the whole deep equanimity towards the 8 worldly winds is part of that middle section of the trainees kind of feeling. And then the last set of ways of working with feeling that culminates in enlightenment is a version of a progression of meditative states.
And did the renunciate sadness take you to Bhavana, and did renunciate happiness keep you there? Were you immediately filled with renunciate happiness when you finally moved to the monastery?
No, it was my karma that took me to the monastery. It must have been my past life paramis that took me there. I had been attending very regularly for 10 years. I had the desire to go forth because I thought I had a gift for speaking about the Dhamma. And I couldn't visualize being a lay Dhamma teacher. But then it so happened that my life partner and I decided to sell the condominium. I quit my job. My partner was disabled. We decided to hike the Appalachian Trail for 1 year, meditate for 1 year, and after that we would decide whether to split up and I would go forth. However, the 1 year of hiking turned into 3 years, punctuated by spending winters at the Bhavana Society. And then at the end of the 2nd year, my partner passed away. So at that point, my parents were deceased. I had no responsibilities towards them. And my life partner was deceased. I didn't have that responsibility. I didn't have children. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any debts. All my worldly possessions were in a storage locker. And I had been spending months on end at the monastery. So it was just the natural thing to go there. Like, that was my family. It just was a gradual development. And so then I applied shortly after my partner passed away. I hiked for 1 more year and then applied for the monastic training. So it really just happened naturally. It was just the logical thing to do. There was nothing else I wanted. And my path from starting the training to getting the bhikkhuni ordination was also, compared to many other women, it was very fast and smooth. So that's another reason I had the paramis, to have good luck, to have a teacher who was able to sponsor me, so I was able to get my full ordination pretty much right on time. Now, as far as the faith that kept me going, I never had a doubt. Once I got on this path, I never wanted to do anything else. So I didn't struggle with doubt. I just keep going because this seems like the natural best life for me.
That's beautiful, Ayya. And I had wanted to ask about the Appalachian Trail, so I'm glad you touched on it. I want to bring, I think it's very inspiring to hear about the path of, individuals like yourself. And I want to bring this very practically to our listeners, most of whom who aren't monastics. Something I know is on people's minds right now, and you're over on the East Coast, near New York, and everything that's happening with politics, etc. Without going into names or anything like that, what advice would you give to people navigating anger, fear, all these emotions that are stirred up by the state of the world right now or at any time, I suppose? What practical advice would you give for our listeners who are really feeling like this is a deep splinter of suffering in their life that dominates a lot of their mental space?
Well, I do have a political program, and that is I'm against killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and drunkenness. And I recommend voting for a person who is the best on those criteria. So that's my political program. The greatest danger that we face in the presence of so much unskilled behavior, so much evil, so much intentional stirring up of hatred as a political strategy, then we are deeply, deeply at danger if we let ourselves become sucked into that to fall into hatred. So if you would, anybody who would like to delight in the misfortune of their political enemies, or anybody who would not sincerely practice the compassionate wish for people caught up in unskillful, terrible ways of behavior to somehow find a way to come out of it, that puts us in the greatest danger of all, even more so than being potentially arrested, potentially locked up, potentially harmed in that kind of way, which is very real, very psychologically traumatizing, but that's nothing compared to the danger we can do to ourselves if we fall into hatred. So that's the work. The Buddha did recommend protecting the truth, and so I do think it's okay for a Buddhist to speak truth to power, that they will need to really know how to protect their own heart and protect their own virtue while they're doing so.
Thank you. Just before we started the call, you were talking about how you, as the new abbot of Empty Cloud Monastery, after Bhante Sudaso and Ayya Sobhana have gone to Italy, Empty Cloud in Italy, that the way that you're governing is called dynamic governance or sociocracy. And although, as Ajahn Nisabho is totally right, that we are monks, monastics living in monasteries, but really that is still just one model of humans living with humans. Could you describe what dynamic governance is and what lessons one might be able to take from that to living with one's spouse or living with a family or living in a small community?
This is a particular format of consensus decision-making that was developed by a Quaker. And the ideas that are very helpful in the monastic form is to escape from hierarchical dangers within Buddhist monastic culture. Part of the idea is that decisions are made at the lowest possible level of the people who are affected by the work. So the person who's responsible for taking care of the yard, those people need to be the leaders in developing the solutions for taking care of the yard. And those who are involved in giving ordination and training monastics need to be the leaders in those decisions. For any decision at any level, the way the consensus works is by means of objections. So there's a careful conversation to understand the problem when there's a problem, and to get an agreement among everybody affected by it, that they agree that this is the problem. Step one. Then, having agreed that this is the problem, there's a creative process where possible solutions emerge. The solutions belong to the group. They don't belong to some individual who's advocating one solution or another. If anybody has a rational concern or a rational objection to a proposed decision, then the decisions is defeated. So they have to find a workaround to accommodate that concern. When all the concerns have been accommodated and nobody has any more concerns left, then it's a decision. There's a kind of an aspect to it of having different circles at different levels that are interlocking. So one of the monastics is a member of the volunteers committee, the friends committee. And because of that consensus process, that person is carrying the concerns of the monastics, and they're able to veto anything that the friends committee wants to do. For any decision, this was not implemented formally, but for any decision that affects the friends of the monastery, as well as affecting the monastics, we hope in the future to have a representative from the Friends Committee. And if they object to something the monastics want to do, then it stops until we can accommodate that. So this has really dramatically solved a situation where people, our volunteers and friends, felt they had responsibility without authority because of their deep respect for the monastics. And then, but the monastics didn't really want to step up and, take charge and be bosses. So being consultants in this way, in that consensus decision process, seems to have unleashed a lot of creativity and engagement on the part of our committee, and it's also eased my mind with my anxieties about being an abbot, that any decision that comes up, that I check in with whoever's a resident at that time, and I don't go ahead unless everybody's comfortable.
Thank you, Ayya. This is actually very useful for us, and I think de facto we have been, we work more or less on a consensus model ourselves, in terms of our lay community as well, our board, and there's been quite a few moments where we're bringing a very refined ethos as monastics, which the world often doesn't understand at first. And I'm curious about those moments with that more egalitarian, decision-making structure. How do you navigate those moments where maybe the monastics are bringing a really important way of doing things, which is counter to how people have thought before? And, and it is a monastery, like you all live there and the lay people don't. How do you navigate those tensions as well?
So far, I'm not experiencing tension in those areas. I think because the people who are volunteering for us have such profound respect for the monastics and such a profound tendency to defer and to go along with any word of advice that the monastics give. That's like immediately followed, like it's almost like too fast to follow the advice or suggestions that the monastic give without bringing it to bear their own practical wisdom. So I feel that we need to do like a little bit more to encourage and give permission to the supporters to feel that they can express from their own point of view and to know that they'll be heard and appreciated.
Well, Ayya, we're almost at the hour, but I'm curious. So a good number of Clear Mountaineers, people who watch regularly, have already been to Empty Cloud. But how would you suggest that people who haven't yet been, how can people tap into Empty Cloud? Can people come visit? When are your YouTube showings? We'd just love to know how people can tap in.
Well, we have regular programs every weekend for day visitors. We have welcome for a small number of people at a time, lay people, to take personal retreats at the Empty Cloud Monastery. They can apply to do that. And I'm very much hoping to continue providing hospitality for both that in-person opportunity, especially for people who are mature in the Dhamma and able to practice independently. So that just simply experiencing the peaceful and spacious quality of this place is just about what they need to be able to go deeper with their own practice. We do give those regular teachings in person, as well as the every weekend, as well as the online teaching.
And we'll list the link to Empty Cloud's website in the description as well. And
by the way, we have overcome the mold and mildew problem and made our monastery to be waterproof, so that rain can come down and it doesn't come inside.
Wow.
So that means that we are ready, and certainly to spread our wings and to become even more welcoming to visitors.
Wow, that must be largely Samasiha's sphere, circle. Way to go, Samasiha.
Yeah.
Before we go over to Zoom, I just it's my kind of, it's my faith side. Do you have a final story of serendipity or deva or something kind of unexplained but faith inspiring that you might be able to share from your path or from the monasteries you've been a part of creating? I find those stories of the unexpected and kind of serendipitous really fun to end on.
Well, I think my arrival here at the Empty Cloud Monastery was a serendipity. It seems that I may be a slow learner, but that this space and this situation is really what I need. And I've benefited so much from the culture that Bhante Sudarsana and Ayya Sobhana had created over the years, which is so clear-minded about the proper priority of a monastic, and the proper livelihood of a monastic, the proper way to spend our lives. I did not know that they were looking for a senior bhikkhuni when I made the request to come and change my base over to there. It was only in the process of making the decision that I found out that they were a native and abbot. So,
Well,
you can do it.
Well, it was great. I arrived there serendipitously the first week that you became the abbot there, and hope to have many more visits, and we'll love to get you out here to Seattle as soon as we can. So,
fall of 2027. I would like to make a tour of the Northwest.
Wow, that was
fantastic.
oddly specific and fast. That's wonderful. So we would love that, Ayya, truly.
Okay.
We're going to go over to Zoom, and Ayya's agreed, even though it's 10 p.m. there, to stick around with us. And so we pasted the link into the chat. And yeah, like Ajahn Kovilo said, Ayya, we're just delighted with what you're cultivating there, for all that Bhante Sudas and Ayya Soma have helped create as well. And we are glad to have a sister and friend over on the East Coast. We hope to maintain this relationship for a long time.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.